Yeah, you are not called to do all things. You are actually called to do something. Hence, the reason you are called somebody, not all body. Hi, my name is Mrs. Chiamaka Linda Veshima, and I welcome you into another episode of Life Unscripted. In Life Unscripted, I share with you how you can be able to become a student for life beyond school system or academic session in order to accomplish more in less time and achieve optimum and sustainable success. So if it is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button as well as the notification bell to get a notification when the next content drops. And if it's your first time on Facebook, go ahead and hit on that follow button because that is one of the best decisions you're going to make in your life this year and beyond. And if it's your first time on Instagram, hit that follow button as well. And I'm going to tell you why. Today, I want to really talk about a very strategic topic people misconstrue for no just cause. They tend to be jack of all trade in the name of multi-potentialites. And today we want to bring into understanding of the true concept of being multi-potential. And so one of the things that you need to learn about being multi-potential is that it's not for some people, it's for everyone. Everyone is a multi-potentialite. What do I mean by that? Like I told you in my previous episode, your definition affects your application, and life does not reward you based on your efforts. Life rewards you based on your definitions. And so, what do I mean by that? Now, let's talk about what multi-potentialite is. Now, what is multi? Multi is something that contains two or more something, right? And then potentialite is something, when you look at it, when you study etymology of the word potential, you will be able to see that it's something that has a possibility. It is actually something that has a possibility. Let's not do jack of all trade in the name of becoming multi-potentialite. It has to stop. You need to know how to maximize this. Everybody is a multi-potentialite, which means everybody have possibility of so many capabilities, of so many abilities. There are so many things inside of you that is seeking expression. Every single person has that. So understanding that everybody is a multi-potentialite, how do you maximize this? Because a lot of people scatter their seeds instead of structure their life with their multi-potentials. And so today I want to share with you how you can be able to maximize that, understanding that everyone is a multi-potentialite. If you know someone who needs to be here, tag them in the comment section or you copy the link and share, because the envy is less when everyone is succeeding. Now, paying attention to this, number one is that there is always a season in people's life. You need to understand that. When you come into life, the first thing that you are expected to do is to identify those potentials, is to be able to identify those things in essence of making a decision for your purpose. And that is what gears you to your relationship with God to be able to discover that. And then in your season of identification of purpose, there is a point where you get to and you begin to see those potentials. What that means, that that potential needs to go through education. That's why even those first 2 years or first to 5 years for some persons, before you go to school, you are expected to learn home training. And when you now go to school, the essence of education, not the essence of school, the essence of education is to shape that identity. So the moment that you are at home, it is expected, although it doesn't happen, unfortunately, it is expected that you begin the journey of identifying this. Sometimes, because we, the parents, and we, the adults, do not have that requisite knowledge to know that it is a season for identification, helping these children to identify who they are so that when they go to school, they can be able to shape that which they have found out. You will see that most people just go to school, leave every power to school, of which it has not been able to fulfill that particular essence of which education was meant for. So, what are we going to do about it? Now that you know that the school system is not able to meet this need, what you need to understand is that a lot of people scatter their seeds because they are not able to gain this, of which the school system is meant to help them do by virtue of education in that system. So what happens here is that in the identification of your purpose, there is what we call personal discovery. And in the time of personal discovery, when you discover that particular potential, whether, for example, if you are going to be a musician, if you want to be a musician, now you know the assignment is becoming a musician. That does not mean that you should that does not mean that you shouldn't learn communication skill, because as a musician, or rather as a singer, you are that messenger between the intention of a composer and that of its audience. So if you don't learn how to communicate, because everybody can, that means it's a possibility, but you transiting that potential to a skill is where it experience education, which means every identification you make needs to be educated. And in the point of education is where you go through the season of exploration. That is the second stage in the time of your purpose discovery. In that second stage, that is where you explore those possibilities, which are those potentials, so that you can be able to separate your major from your complementary, so that you don't major on the minor when you should major on your major. So when you now find out, oh, it's actually music, it means you need to learn all those complementary skills that makes you totally equipped to deliver on that particular industry. And so when you understand that in your season of exploration is to be able to separate these which you have identified, the major ones from the minor ones, you will know that it is the time for specialization. That is why a lot of people focus on exoteric knowledge instead of esoteric knowledge. That's why people are shallow in their thoughts. They want to do everything at the same time. But the thing is that it is counterproductive to do everything at the same time with the concept of jack of all trade. And when you are jack of all trade, you are a master of none, because you can't compare what you do part-time with what you do full-time. If you do something part-time, you always get part-time results. But when you do something full-time, it's different. You are always at the edge of those people who are doing part-time, because you give your full attention, you give your full focus, you give your full consistency. Because at the end of the day, when you identify those majors and specialize, you will now be able to understand that competence can be outsourced. So those things you are killing yourself. You will be the graphic designer because you know that I'm born to. Everybody has that creative ability. Let me tell you the truth. That is why in the beginning of creation, even before God rested, after creating creatures, he had to create creators, which is you and I, to actually rest, because he now know that he has infused his power through his own image and likeness, as we being a creator of himself, to continue to create. So everybody have that creative ability, but how many people are engaging it? That's the point. You have a lot of possibilities around your life, but you are not exploring them to be able to separate your major and your minor. And that's why you struggle with specialization, because that's what makes you a T-shaped entrepreneur. With this particular explanation, it takes me over an hour to explain. And I always like people to ask me questions so that I can draw this point home. And when I tell you when I start saying those things, some people will begin to fight. What of me that have this? What of me? I said, I will always tell them there are so many lands, but it depends on the crops you want to plant that will make that land fruitful. For instance, even if it's a loamy soil, and maybe the particular kind of, because I studied agriculture, there are some crops, they don't really need so much of those things. They just need a place that whatever you plant there, it will grow. There are some crops that accept more of that fertility that is very stronger. So you need to understand the land where you should be able to invest your crops. All right. So in your season of exploration, explore those potentials. Explore those potentials and know the ones that is saying, this is the major one. All these ones are augmentation of making you a full-blown master in that particular industry. So don't confuse yourself. Stop scattering your seeds in the name of being multi-potentialite. Everybody is a multi-potentialite, but you gain mastery with the repetition and the exploration season. And when you explore those potential, you will see that you have a definite purpose and you know exactly what you want. And that is going to determine the kind of partnership or relationship you are going to get yourself into, because you will always make it very difficult for people to connect with you when you are everywhere. And it shows that you are so inconsistent, and nobody wants to work with someone who is very inconsistent, because it shows a level of a novice. So you need to be able to understand that in the realm of mastery, you need to explore those potentials to separate your majors from your minors, and understand that your minors are to augment your majors to help you become a complete master in that particular industry of your assignment. So don't misconstrue it. Go into the season of purpose discovery, and you see this kind of explanation, you can hardly find it in a school system. That's why you need to become a student for life. Hence the reason life unscripted, because life is unscripted. It only take your discipline to pick up a pen and a paper to write or rewrite your script, because there are defining moments and there are redefining moments. But my question to you is, have you made that decision to actually pick up that pen and a paper to begin to write? Because that's where your history lies. When you are ready to do that, I can't wait for you to ask me questions on this. I really need people to start asking questions. I really need you to develop the confidence and the audacity to question things, because it is the beginning of you writing a new chapter in your life. And I hope you are able to maximize this information and share it to those it will be beneficial to, so that they can be able to become the master of what they are called to do, rather than becoming master of none in the name of being multi-potentialite. And of course, life will reward you based on your definition, because your definition affects your application. I can't wait to see you in the next episode. I still remain your friend and your go-to-get edupreneur, founder of the Confident Global Champions, Mrs. 𝗟𝗏𝗦𝗃𝗓. And until I see you again in the next episode of Life Unscripted, don't forget that it is time to live the life you are proud of and not the one people recommend. Till then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.